baby on my doorstep.
At exactly 6 a.m., the most powerful man in the city opens his front door and finds a baby where threats usually arrive. No cameras, no footsteps, just a wicker basket, a sleeping newborn, and a note that says, "His name is Leo. Keep him safe. He is yours now." This is a man who built his life like a fortress, cold, perfect, untouchable. A man who believes love is a weakness, and children are impossible. But in the next few hours, one tiny heartbeat will begin to tear down everything he ever believed about legacy, power, and family. Before we go deeper into this unforgettable story of love, loss, and found family, subscribe if you enjoy emotional, cinematic stories like this. Like this video to support the channel, and comment below. Do you believe family is defined by blood or by choice? Rain falls hard that Tuesday morning, sharp and steady, tapping against the glass walls of the penthouse like impatient fingers, and Alistair Thorne stands at his front door exactly at 7:02 a.m., coat already on, briefcase in hand, prepared for another day of control and certainty, when the doorbell rings, not once, but twice, short and firm. And that alone irritates him because no one rings twice unless they are careless or desperate. He opens the reinforced steel door with a scowl already set on his face, ready to dismiss whoever has dared interrupt his schedule, and then he freezes. At his feet sits a simple wicker shopping basket, old and worn, its handle slightly broken, rainwater dripping from its sides and pooling on the marble floor. For a moment, he only stares at it, confused, suspicious, his eyes scanning the hallway, the cameras, the empty air. "This is not funny," he says aloud, his voice sharp, expecting someone to step out and laugh, but no one does. Then he notices movement. Inside the basket, wrapped tightly in a soft, hand-knitted yellow blanket, is a newborn baby boy, tiny chest rising and falling in calm, steady breaths, his face relaxed, unaware of storms or billionaires or abandoned doorsteps. Alistair steps back as if the basket might explode. "No," he mutters. "Absolutely not." He looks left, then right, then down the hallway again. "Security," he calls out, louder this time. Nothing. He kneels slowly, not out of care but caution, and sees a small note pinned to the blanket with a simple silver safety pin. His fingers hesitate before touching it, as though the paper itself might accuse him. He reads it once. His name is Leo. Keep him safe. He is yours now. Alistair's jaw tightens. "Yours," he repeats coldly. This is highly inappropriate. The baby stirs, lets out a soft sound, then settles again. Alistair straightens quickly, pulls out his phone, and dials without hesitation. "I need security at my residence immediately," he snaps. "There has been a breach." A pause. Yes, a serious one. He ends the call and moves to the wall panel, tapping rapidly until the security feed fills the screen. He rewinds footage, scans angles, checks timestamps. His expression darkens. "Looped," he says quietly. "Clever." His phone rings again. "Sir," the head of security says nervously, "we are reviewing. Find who did this," Alistair cuts in. "Check every camera within 3 blocks. I want names, faces, motives. Treat this like a hostile act." "Understood, sir." He hangs up and immediately calls his lawyer. "I've been left a package," he says flatly. "Yes, a human one." Silence. "I don't care how unusual it sounds. I want options. Legal, immediate." He ends the call and exhales sharply, rubbing his temples. That's when the baby whimpers, a small, fragile sound that slices through the quiet penthouse like a crack in glass. Alistair stiffens. "No," he says again, softer this time. The whimper grows into a cry, thin and shaky, the sound of discomfort and need. Alistair looks down at the basket as if it has betrayed him. "Stop that," he says, awkward and unsure. The baby's face scrunches, lips trembling, cry rising. Alistair glances at the hallway, then at the open door, rain blowing in, soaking the edges of the blanket. With clear irritation, he bends and lifts the basket, heavier than he expected, carrying it inside. "This is temporary," he says firmly, as if the baby can understand contracts. "Very temporary." He sets the basket on the floor, stares down at the crying child, and for the first time that morning, nothing he knows how to do makes the sound stop. The private doctor arrives within the hour, rain still clinging to his coat as he steps into the penthouse with a leather medical bag that looks far too ordinary for the place, and Alistair stands nearby with his arms folded, watching every movement like this is a negotiation, not a medical visit. The baby lies on the sofa, still wrapped in the yellow blanket, small and quiet now, eyes half open, blinking at the bright lights above. "Let's see him," the doctor says gently, reaching out. Alistair hesitates for half a second before nodding. "Be careful," he says, his voice firm. The doctor lifts the baby with practiced ease, checking his heartbeat, his reflexes, his tiny fingers and toes. "He's healthy," the doctor says after a moment. "Very healthy. Strong lungs." The baby lets out a small cry, as if to prove the point. "How old?" Alistair asks quickly. "A few hours," the doctor replies. "No more than 12. He was born recently." Alistair's eyes flicker, calculating. No signs of illness. "None," the doctor says. "Who's the mother?" Alistair looks away. "Unknown." The doctor pauses, studying him. "Then we should inform social services." "Already done," Alistair says, pulling out his phone. As if summoned by his words, it buzzes. He answers sharply. "Yes." A voice speaks on the other end. "Mr. Thorne, this is Child Services. We received your report." "Good," Alistair replies. "Send someone. Immediately." The doctor packs his tools. "I'll need to take a blood sample for a DNA test," he says. "Standard procedure." "Do it," Alistair says without hesitation. "Run it against my profile." The needle goes in, the baby cries, sharp and sudden, and Alistair flinches before he can stop himself. "It will take weeks," the doctor adds. "I understand," Alistair says, though his jaw tightens. The doctor leaves, and soon after, 2 social workers arrive, polite but cautious, their eyes moving from the marble floors to the baby to Alistair himself. "Mr. Thorne," one of them says carefully, "we'll need to take the child into temporary care until the mother is located." Alistair's voice hardens. "That won't be necessary." The woman blinks. "Sir." "This environment is secure," he says, gesturing around. "Clean. Monitored. Safer than any holding facility you could offer." "We still have protocols, and I have influence," Alistair interrupts calmly. "Temporary custody. Until the mother is found." The room goes quiet. The second social worker clears his throat. "You're not related." "Not yet," Alistair says, then corrects himself quickly. "That's what the test is for." The baby stirs again, a soft sound escaping his lips, and Alistair looks down at him. "It's the humane option," he continues. "Hygienic. Logical." The first social worker watches him closely. "Do you want this child, Mr. Thorne?" Alistair opens his mouth, then pauses. "I want what makes sense," he says finally. The social worker nods slowly, unconvinced but cornered. "We'll file temporary custody," she says. "But we'll be watching." "Of course," Alistair replies. When they leave, the penthouse feels different, heavier. Alistair stands alone again, staring at the baby sleeping peacefully on his couch, paperwork on the table, decisions made in ink instead of feeling. "This is temporary," he says quietly, though no one asks him to explain, and somewhere deep inside, a voice he refuses to listen to whispers that he is lying. The guest room has never been used before, not once in all the years Alistair Thorne has lived in the penthouse, but now it looks nothing like the quiet, untouched space it once was, because a crib has been rushed in, plastic still clinging to its legs, and a dresser that costs more than a small car has been pushed against the wall and turned into a changing table, covered with towels that do not match and supplies that Alistair does not understand. The lights are too bright. The room smells unfamiliar. And in the middle of it all, Leo screams. He is red-faced, tiny fists clenched, his cries sharp and endless, bouncing off the walls like an alarm that refuses to shut off. Alistair stands frozen for a second, staring at the baby as though the sound itself has accused him of something terrible. "Stop," he says, not cruelly, but helplessly. "I'm trying." He reaches for a diaper, unfolds it the wrong way, turns it around, then drops it on the floor. Leo screams louder. "All right," Alistair snaps, his calm finally cracking. "All right." His hands shake as he lifts the baby, awkward, stiff, terrified of doing it wrong. Leo thrashes. "No, no, don't move," Alistair says, voice tight. "Please." He fumbles with the tabs, sticks one to his own sleeve, curses under his breath when the diaper slides crooked. "This is inefficient," he mutters. "There should be instructions." The baby screams as if insulted by the suggestion. Alistair moves to the kitchen to make formula, reading the label 3 times, measuring water too carefully, then setting it on the stove and walking away for exactly 10 seconds too long. The smell hits him. Burnt. He stares at the pot. "Unacceptable," he says flatly, pouring it down the sink and starting again. When he returns to the room, Leo is crying so hard his body shakes. "I'm here," Alistair says quickly, though he is not sure what that means. He tries feeding him, misses the mouth, spills milk down the blanket. "I'm sorry," he blurts, the word surprising even himself. Midnight passes. Then 1 a.m. Then 2. Alistair's shirt is wrinkled, his hair no longer perfect, his confidence completely gone. Leo will not stop crying. Finally, exhausted beyond pride, Alistair sinks into the chair and lifts Leo against his chest, holding him not as a task but because there is nothing else left to try. Leo's head rests just below his collarbone, tiny and warm against the stiff fabric of Alistair's shirt. "I don't know what you want," Alistair whispers. "I don't know how to do this." He begins to rock without thinking, slow and uneven, back and forth like someone copying a movement from memory. A sound escapes his throat, soft, unsure, a broken melody he has not heard in decades, something his own mother once hummed in a small, quiet house far away. The tune is off-key, incomplete, but it is real. Leo's cries falter. They soften. Then they stop. The room goes still. Alistair freezes, afraid to breathe. He looks down and sees Leo asleep, mouth slightly open, fingers curled against his chest, trusting without question. Something in Alistair breaks open. His throat tightens. His vision blurs. "Oh," he whispers, as a single tear slips free and rolls down his cheek, startling him more than the baby ever did. He does not wipe it away. He does not move. He sits there until dawn begins to creep into the room, watching Leo's chest rise and fall, counting each breath as if it is the most important deal he has ever closed. And when morning comes, Alistair Thorne has not slept at all, but for the first time in many years he has not been alone. Morning comes with order, schedules, and lists, and Alistair Thorne clings to them like armor, because if this situation can be organized, then it can be controlled. He stands in his kitchen with a tablet in hand, eyes sharp, hair neat again, suit perfectly pressed, while Leo sits in a high chair nearby, staring at him with wide, curious eyes. "This is temporary," Alistair says firmly, more to himself than anyone else. "This will be handled professionally." By noon, the first nanny arrives, smiling too brightly, carrying certifications and a soft voice. "Hello, Mr. Thorne," she says. "I've worked with infants for 15 years. Alistair nods once. "Excellent. Take him." The nanny reaches for Leo. The moment her hands touch him, Leo's face crumples and he screams, loud and furious, a sound that cuts through the penthouse like shattered glass. "It's all right," the nanny coos. "I've got you." Leo screams harder, tiny arms reaching wildly toward Alistair. "He needs time," the nanny says, trying to bounce him. "No," Alistair says sharply, his chest tightening. "Give him back." The moment Leo is back in his arms, the screaming stops. Silence. The nanny blinks. "That's unusual," she says. Alistair clears his throat. "Try again." They do. Same result. The second nanny is older, calm, confident. "Babies sense anxiety," she says gently. "He'll adjust." She takes Leo. The scream is immediate and furious. "Sir," she says over the noise, "this is healthy attachment." "It's disruptive," Alistair replies, already reaching for his son. Leo quiets instantly. By the end of the day, 3 nannies have come and gone, each attempt ending the same way, Leo screaming until his face turns red, until Alistair takes him back and holds him awkwardly against his chest. "He appears selective," one nanny says carefully. Alistair exhales slowly. "Thank you for your time." The door closes. Silence returns, broken only by Leo's soft breathing. Alistair looks down at him. "This is highly inefficient," he says. Leo blinks at him. The next morning, Alistair stands in front of the mirror with Leo strapped into a baby sling across his chest, adjusting the straps with the same focus he once used on ties before board meetings. "This will not become a habit," he mutters. Leo gurgles. The car ride to the office is tense. Alistair checking the mirror every few seconds. You stay quiet, he says. Just for a few hours. Leo yawns. At the office, his assistant freezes. Sir, she says, staring. Is that a baby? Yes, Alistair replies, walking past her. Reschedule my morning meetings to include him. Include him, Alistair repeats. In the boardroom, executives exchange confused glances as Alistair begins his presentation, Leo asleep against his chest. As you can see, Alistair says, clicking to the next slide, quarterly projections remain strong. Leo stirs. Alistair shifts slightly, rocking without realizing it. Sir, one board member whispers, is this appropriate? Alistair looks at him calmly. Proceed. Hours later, in his office, Alistair signs documents with one hand and bounces Leo gently with the other. This is not ideal, he says quietly. Leo grips his finger. Alistair pauses, looks down, then continues working. By the end of the day, he is exhausted, his schedule ruined, his routine shattered, but Leo sleeps peacefully against him. As they leave the office, his assistant says softly, he seems comfortable with you, sir. Alistair nods once. Apparently, he says, though his arms tighten just a little, as if letting go is no longer an option. The boardroom is cold glass walls rising like barriers, long polished tables stretching beneath sharp white lights, and every executive in the room sits straight as Alistair Thorne stands at the head. Dressed in a flawless Savile Row suit, tie, perfect shoes, shining authority stitched into every seam, and yet nothing about this moment is normal because a baby sleeps quietly in a dark sling strapped across his chest. Leo's small head rests just below Alistair's collarbone, mouth slightly open, breath warm and steady, completely unaware that billion-dollar decisions are being made inches away from him. Alistair clears his throat. Let's begin, he says, voice firm. The screen lights up behind him. Charts. Numbers. Projections. He speaks clearly, pointing with one hand, while the other rests protectively over Leo's back without him noticing he is doing it. A board member leans toward another and whispers, is this really happening? Alistair hears it. He pauses, looks directly at them. If there are questions about the data, he says evenly, ask them. Silence. He continues. Leo shifts slightly, lets out a soft sound. Alistair stops mid-sentence, rocks gently from side to side, eyes never leaving the chart. As I was saying, he continues once Leo settles, our margins will improve by Q3. One executive clears his throat. Sir, he says carefully, perhaps we should reschedule. Alistair looks at him, calm and unshaken. No, he replies. Proceed. By the end of the presentation, no one is looking at the baby anymore. They are looking at Alistair, at the strange calm authority of a man who has learned to lead while holding something fragile. That night, the penthouse study glows with soft lamplight instead of cold white brilliance. Papers cover the desk. Screens show moving stock charts. Alistair sits in his chair, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, exhaustion heavy on his face. Leo fusses softly in his arms, tiny brows wrinkled, legs kicking. I know, Alistair murmurs, bouncing him gently while scrolling through data with his free hand. I'm trying to finish. Leo whines louder. Alistair sighs, stands, and walks slowly around the room, rocking him. This is not how I usually work, he says quietly. But neither are you. Leo grips his finger. Alistair pauses, looks down at him, then resumes pacing, humming under his breath. Hours pass. The city lights dim outside. Alistair reviews charts, makes calls in a low voice, signs approvals, all while adjusting Leo's blanket, whispering, almost done, as if the baby understands deadlines. When Leo finally settles, asleep again, Alistair sits back down, one hand steadying the sling, the other tracing numbers on the screen. He glances at the time, surprised. Midnight, he mutters. He should be irritated. He should be overwhelmed. Instead, he watches Leo's chest rise and fall, then turns back to his work, quieter now, slower, careful not to wake the small life resting against his heart. The kitchen has never been used for anything complicated before, but tonight it looks like a battlefield of towels, soap bottles, and instructions pulled up on a tablet, and Alistair Thorne stands at the sink with his sleeves rolled high, staring down at Leo as if he is about to defuse a bomb. The water runs softly, steam rising, and Alistair tests it again and again with the back of his finger. Too hot, he mutters, turning the tap. Too cold. He adjusts it once more, nods stiffly. Acceptable. Leo lies on a folded towel inside the sink, wide-eyed and curious, legs kicking. You must not move suddenly, Alistair says seriously. Leo responds by kicking harder. That was a request, Alistair adds. He lifts Leo carefully, lowering him into the warm water with both hands shaking. Slowly, he whispers, his face tight with fear. Very slowly. The moment Leo touches the water, he freezes, then grins, and suddenly slaps the surface with his hand. Water splashes everywhere, soaking Alistair's shirt, spraying his face. Alistair gasps. No, another splash. Then another. Water drips from his hair, his nose. For a second, he just stands there, shocked, and then something strange happens. He laughs. It is sharp at first, startled, as if it escaped without permission. You did that on purpose, he says, incredulous. Leo squeals, delighted. That is unacceptable behavior, Alistair says, laughing again despite himself. He wipes water from his face, shakes his head. Absolutely unacceptable. He washes Leo gently, still smiling, still cautious, talking the entire time. This arm, he narrates. This leg. Very good. When he lifts Leo out and wraps him in a towel, Leo is calm, warm, happy. Alistair looks at him, surprised by how light his chest feels. The next morning, an envelope waits on Alistair's desk, thin and white and heavier than it should be. He knows what it is before he opens it. He sits down, straightens the paper inside with care, and reads the results once. No familial match. He reads it again, slower. He waits for relief. It does not come. Instead, something drops inside him, sudden and deep, like the floor has vanished beneath his feet. No, he whispers, though the paper is clear. His hands tremble. That's not right. He stares at the words, heart pounding, realizing too late that he wanted the answer to be yes, that he had already imagined it, already claimed it in his heart. He looks toward the living room where Leo sleeps, peaceful and unaware. You were supposed to be mine, Alistair says softly, voice breaking. He folds the paper carefully, places it in a drawer, pushes it far back, and closes it. No one needs to know, he says to the empty room. He walks to Leo, watches him breathe, and rests a hand gently on his small chest, holding on as if loss itself has already tried to take him away. The change does not happen overnight. It creeps in slowly, quietly, the way rain seeps into stone, and Alistair Thorne does not notice it until the penthouse no longer feels like a showroom but like a place where life actually happens. The first thing to go is silence. Leo makes sounds constantly, soft hums, sharp cries, sudden laughs, and those sounds begin to live in the walls. Then color follows. A bright foam playmat arrives and is placed carefully on the Persian rug, and Alistair stands there staring at it for a long time, arms crossed. This rug is older than most people, he says to the nanny. He will not ruin it, she replies gently. Leo rolls over and grabs a red toy, drooling happily. Alistair sighs. Fine, he says, but only during the day. Soon stuffed animals appear everywhere, on the Eames chair, on the couch, even lined neatly on the piano bench. Alistair tries to move them at first. They do not belong here, he mutters, picking up a brown bear. Leo crawls after him and cries until the bear is returned. You're unreasonable, Alistair tells him, setting it back. The kitchen, once perfect, now carries evidence of meals and mess. Tiny fingerprints appear on the marble. Baby food stains dry in faint orange streaks. Alistair cleans them immediately at first, then starts cleaning only at night, then sometimes not at all. His tablet changes too. Where there were once graphs and forecasts, there are now charts labeled 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. He reads aloud while Leo watches him. First steps expected soon, he says. That seems optimistic. Leo pulls himself up on the sofa and falls onto his bottom. You see, Alistair says. Not ready. He researches organic purees like they are investments. No added sugar, he says firmly to the chef. Seasonal ingredients only. The chef nods. Of course, sir. Time moves quickly. And one morning his assistant says softly, Sir, Leo turns 1 today. Alistair pauses. Already. The living room fills with staff later that day, all loyal, all unsure how to behave. Balloons float near the ceiling. A small cake sits on the table. Alistair adjusts the paper party hat on his head, clearly uncomfortable. "This is unnecessary," he says. "He won't remember." "You will," his assistant replies. Leo sits in his high chair, staring at the cake with serious focus. "It contains sugar," Alistair says. "Just today," the chef says kindly. Leo slams his hands into the cake, frosting flying everywhere. "That is," Alistair begins, then stops. Leo laughs loudly and reaches up, smearing icing across Alistair's nose. The room freezes. Alistair does not move. Then slowly, his lips curve upward. He laughs, real and surprised. "You did that on purpose," he says softly. The staff smiles. Alistair leaves the icing there, bends down, and kisses Leo's head. "Happy birthday," he whispers. The penthouse is messy, loud, and full, and Alistair Thorne, once alone in a perfect fortress, stands in the middle of it all smiling, truly smiling, because for the first time, the chaos feels right. Sunlight pours into Alara's studio like liquid gold, spilling across wooden floors and catching in the dust motes that float lazily in the warm air, and yet the light cannot reach the sadness in her eyes, cannot lift the weight she carries quietly, stubbornly, a secret she cannot share. Canvases line the walls, colors vibrant, chaotic, alive with emotion, reds bleeding into blues, yellows bright as fire, strokes bold and urgent. Yet every brushstroke seems to carry a shadow, an undercurrent of longing, of regret. She steps back from a half-finished painting, smudges of her own fingers on her cheeks, and breathes deeply, tasting the scent of turpentine and oil. Her phone buzzes on the workbench, the small red notification glowing. She picks it up. A tabloid headline stares back, "Billionaire and the Basket Baby, heartwarming story of fortune and fate." She reads quickly, scanning the article. There are photos of Alistair, stiff and formal, holding Leo in his arms, staff looking on in bemused surprise, a cake smeared across his nose. "They made him happy," she whispers, voice barely audible. Her hands shake slightly. She sets the phone down and steps toward the window, looking out at the city, traffic moving below like tiny ants, oblivious to her thoughts. "I wonder if he knows," she murmurs to herself, fingers tracing the edge of the sill. Her assistant enters quietly. "Are you ready for the gallery showing?" "Not yet," she says. "I need more time." The assistant nods, silent, understanding without asking questions. Alara moves from canvas to canvas, picking up a brush again, dabbing at streaks of blue, then red, then green, her movements precise but heavy, her eyes distant. Every now and then she pauses, staring at the space behind the studio door, imagining a small boy running through it, laughing, yelling for attention, reaching for her hand. She thinks of Leo, sees his face in her mind, so small, perfect, unaware of her existence, and the secret she carries claws at her chest. She was the one who left him on that doorstep. She remembers the moment clearly, her hand shaking as she wrapped him in the yellow blanket, the soft weight of his body in her arms, the sound of his tiny breathing, and the promise she made silently that he would be safe, that Alistair would be the one to raise him. She whispers to the empty studio, "I hope you are okay," her voice breaking. She picks up a palette, mixes a violent red with soft yellow, slashes it across the canvas, and then stops. She stares at the painting, frustrated. It does not capture what she feels. No color can. She sets the brush down, leans against the table, and for hours she just watches the sunlight move across the room, following it like a clock, thinking of Leo, thinking of Alistair, thinking of the life that exists now without her, yet because of her. She calls a friend, voice low and hesitant. "Have you seen the news? The one about him?" "Yes," the friend replies. "It's all over society pages. Everyone is talking." "And does he look happy?" Alara asks, almost desperate. "Yes," the friend says. "The baby, too. It's beautiful." She hangs up, closes her eyes, and leans her forehead against the window. "I can't go back," she whispers. "Not yet. Not like this." And so she continues, day after day, painting, watching, following Leo's growth from a distance, heartbreaking and swelling all at once, knowing she saved him, knowing she gave him a father, yet feeling the ache of absence in every brushstroke, every sunbeam, every whispered thought. She is near, and yet invisible, carrying the secret like a shadow that will not leave, haunted by what she did, haunted by what she cannot say. Sunlight pours into Alara's studio like liquid gold, spilling across wooden floors and catching in the dust motes that float lazily in the warm air. And yet the light cannot reach the sadness in her eyes, cannot lift the weight she carries quietly, stubbornly, a secret she cannot share. Canvases line the walls, colors vibrant, chaotic, alive with emotion, reds bleeding into blues, yellows bright as fire, strokes bold and urgent, yet every brushstroke seems to carry a shadow, an undercurrent of longing, of regret. She steps back from a half-finished painting, smudges of her own fingers on her cheeks, and breathes deeply, tasting the scent of turpentine and oil. Her phone buzzes on the workbench, the small red notification glowing. She picks it up. A tabloid headline stares back, "Billionaire and the Basket Baby, heartwarming story of fortune and fate." She reads quickly, scanning the article. There are photos of Alistair, stiff and formal, holding Leo in his arms, staff looking on in bemused surprise, a cake smeared across his nose. "They made him happy," she whispers, voice barely audible. Her hands shake slightly. She sets the phone down and steps toward the window, looking out at the city, traffic moving below like tiny ants, oblivious to her thoughts. "I wonder if he knows," she murmurs to herself, fingers tracing the edge of the sill. Her assistant enters quietly. "Are you ready for the gallery showing?" "Not yet," she says. "I need more time." The assistant nods, silent, understanding without asking questions. Alara moves from canvas to canvas, picking up a brush again, dabbing at streaks of blue, then red, then green, her movements precise but heavy, her eyes distant. Every now and then she pauses, staring at the space behind the studio door, imagining a small boy running through it, laughing, yelling for attention, reaching for her hand. She thinks of Leo, sees his face in her mind, so small, perfect, unaware of her existence, and the secret she carries claws at her chest. She was the one who left him on that doorstep. She remembers the moment clearly, her hand shaking as she wrapped him in the yellow blanket, the soft weight of his body in her arms, the sound of his tiny breathing, and the promise she made silently that he would be safe, that Alistair would be the one to raise him. She whispers to the empty studio, "I hope you are okay," her voice breaking. She picks up a palette, mixes a violent red with soft yellow, slashes it across the canvas, and then stops. She stares at the painting, frustrated. It does not capture what she feels. No color can. She sets the brush down, leans against the table, and for hours she just watches the sunlight move across the room, following it like a clock, thinking of Leo, thinking of Alistair, thinking of the life that exists now without her, yet because of her. She calls a friend, voice low and hesitant. "Have you seen the news? The one about him?" "Yes," the friend replies. "It's all over society pages. Everyone is talking." "And does he look happy?" Alara asks, almost desperate. "Yes," the friend says. "The baby, too. It's beautiful." She hangs up, closes her eyes, and leans her forehead against the window. "I can't go back," she whispers. "Not yet. Not like this." And so she continues day after day, painting, watching, following Leo's growth from a distance, heartbreaking and swelling all at once, knowing she saved him, knowing she gave him a father, yet feeling the ache of absence in every brushstroke, every sunbeam, every whispered thought. She is near, and yet invisible, carrying the secret like a shadow that will not leave, haunted by what she did, haunted by what she cannot say. The morning sunlight spills gently through the curtains, soft and warm, and 5-year-old Leo sits cross-legged on the living room rug, his small hands twisting the edges of a picture book, looking up at Alistair with big curious eyes that have learned to trust but not yet fully understand. "Daddy?" Leo asks quietly, a question carefully chosen, the kind that hangs in the air longer than words. Alistair pauses in the doorway, holding a cup of coffee, perfect suit neatly pressed despite the chaos that comes with raising a child. His heart tightens instantly, and he sets the cup down without a word. "Yes, Leo," he says gently, kneeling down to meet his son at eye level. "Where's my mommy?" Leo's words are innocent, pure, yet they slice straight through the armor Alistair has spent years building. He looks away for a moment, blinking rapidly, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Your mommy," he begins carefully, choosing each word as if negotiating a delicate contract, "loved you so much she gave you to me, because she knew I needed you." Leo blinks, processing. She. Alistair nods, a tight, fragile smile tugging at his lips. "Yes. She trusted me with the most important thing in the world, and I will always keep you safe." Leo's small hands reach out to clutch Alistair's fingers, and Alistair allows himself a long, quiet moment of connection, feeling the weight of truth, the release of honesty, and the ache of all the years that came before. Days pass, weeks pass, and Alistair continues to shape the life he never thought he would have. He is there for every small victory, every stumble. At Leo's school play, front row seats are his, phone in hand, recording clumsily, adjusting the camera over and over to catch every movement of his son on stage, the little suit jacket too big, the tie askew. Smile, Leo, Alistair whispers quietly, though Leo cannot hear him yet. Laughter erupts from the other children, applause echoes in the auditorium, and Alistair leans back, heart swelling with pride. On a sunny afternoon, Leo, now 7, sits on the sidewalk, helmet strapped tightly, bike wobbling dangerously. Alistair crouches behind him, one hand gripping the seat, the other holding his little shoulder steady. Okay, ready? He asks, voice calm but firm. Leo nods, eyes shining with excitement and fear. Alistair lets go just a fraction, then steadies him again. They ride a few feet, then a few more, until balance is finally achieved. You're doing it. Alistair cheers, laughing, and then the bike tips unexpectedly. They tumble into a heap, laughing uncontrollably, dusting off scraped knees, brushing grass from hair. Again. Leo cries, eager, fearless. Alistair shakes his head, smiling. One more time, he agrees, pushing the bike forward once more. When Leo turns 10, homework becomes more complex, numbers and letters forming patterns that even he had to pause over. Alistair sits beside him at the kitchen table, notebook open, pencil poised. Look, he says carefully, explaining a tricky math problem. You see, if we distribute these numbers here, it's the same principle I use when dividing shares during a merger. You just have to keep track of each variable. Leo listens intently, brow furrowed, then grins as understanding clicks. Oh, I get it now. Exactly, Alistair says, pleased, letting himself feel a rare, soft pride. Hours pass, questions asked and answered, formulas explained, corrections made with patience he never expected to have. Through every school play, every bicycle ride, every homework session, Alistair's fortress of perfection slowly transforms, walls softening, rigid schedules bending to accommodate laughter, mistakes, learning, and love, and he begins to realize that these are the true measures of success, far more than power, money, or legacy. Every moment is painstaking, messy, beautiful, and real, and he would not trade a single second of it for anything. The penthouse feels smaller, now quieter in some ways, filled with memories rather than marble and glass, and Leo, now 15, moves through it with a confidence and warmth that makes Alistair pause sometimes, as if he is seeing not only his son but a reflection of everything he never knew he could be. Leo's hair is longer, slightly messy, his eyes sharp and kind, the same deep brown that once peered up at Alistair with innocence, now scanning the world with curiosity and empathy. He notices things that others miss, small gestures, quiet acts of need, and he is the first to see the loneliness in his father. The way Alistair smiles for the world while a different weight presses on his shoulders when no one is watching. You should come with me today, Leo says one morning, a stack of envelopes in his hand. To the community kitchen? The shelter? Alistair glances at his schedule, appointments meticulously planned, meetings lined up like soldiers. I have a board meeting. You always have a board meeting, Leo says, voice teasing but gentle. Come. Just once. Alistair hesitates. Leo's eyes are steady, patient. Finally, he nods. All right, he says softly. Later that week, they stand side by side in a bustling kitchen filled with smells of soup and bread. Leo hands bread to the people in line, smiles warmly, encourages shy children. Alistair follows, stiff at first, handing out meals, counting portions, keeping order, but Leo's presence softens him, makes him laugh at small mistakes, makes him ask questions about those they serve. The bond between them grows silently, through gestures, shared jokes, quiet understanding. One evening, months later, they are at a high society gala, crystal chandeliers glittering, champagne flutes catching the light, women in silks, men in tuxedos. Alistair stands tall, perfect suit, calm, collected, yet Leo notices the familiar wall, the way his father scans the room, always measuring, always cautious. A man leans near them, glass in hand, clearly drunk, and sneers just loud enough for Leo to hear, voice slurring but full of venom. At least my fortune will pass to real blood, not some stray you found on your doorstep. The insult hangs in the air, tension prickling the skin of everyone nearby. Alistair's jaw tightens. He opens his mouth, lips moving, ready to strike back with corporate precision. But Leo steps forward, calm and poised, a presence that draws the attention of the room. He lifts his chin, looks the man directly in the eye. My father taught me, Leo begins, voice steady, resonant, that legacy isn't about blood. It's about the love you leave behind. Something you clearly know nothing about. The room falls utterly silent. Conversations stop mid-sentence. Glasses are lowered. The man blinks, caught off guard, color flushing his face. Alistair stands behind Leo, chest swelling, heart thundering with pride fiercer than any victory he has achieved in boardrooms or contracts. He watches his son, seeing not only the young man he has raised but the depth of compassion, wisdom, and strength that has grown from their years together, from late nights, laughter, arguments, lessons, mistakes, and unconditional love. Leo turns back toward him, subtle smile, and Alistair for the first time in decades allows himself to feel the quiet, powerful joy of watching a life he nurtured blossom into something remarkable, something unstoppable, something that surpasses even the empire he has built. The crowd remains frozen, caught between awe and respect, but Alistair does not care. He leans slightly, whispering just for his son, "Well done." Leo grins back, eyes sparkling. And in that single moment, the penthouse, the boardrooms, the charity kitchens, all of it, everything, feels connected, complete, and filled with the quiet certainty that love, guidance, and presence are the truest legacies a man can leave. The penthouse study has changed almost as much as the people who live in it. Once cold, sterile, and immaculate, it now carries warmth in every corner. Books lie in small stacks, not perfectly aligned but easy to reach. A few toys, blocks, a small wooden car, sit near the rug, remnants of Leo's presence. Sunlight spills through the tall windows, catching on the soft leather of the chairs, dust motes dancing lazily in the golden light. Alistair sits behind his desk, papers pushed aside, a small stack of letters waiting for his attention, but for once he doesn't mind. The room smells faintly of polished wood, baby lotion, and the subtle scent of brewed tea from earlier. There is a knock at the door. He looks up. "Come in," he calls, voice calm but cautious. The door opens slowly. She steps in. Ilara. Her hair pulled back loosely, paint-stained fingers visible even through the sleeves of a jacket. Eyes wide but carrying the weight of years she has tried to ignore. "Hello, Alistair," she says, voice soft, almost afraid. Alistair rises, instinctively, a mixture of old habit and surprise. "Ilara," he says carefully. He gestures toward a chair. "Sit. It's been a long time." She hesitates, then moves slowly toward the chair, hands folded in front of her, fingers twisting nervously. I couldn't stay away any longer," she begins, voice breaking slightly. "I've heard. About Leo. About you. About how you've changed. And she stops. Alistair sits back down, studying her silently. "You've seen the papers?" he asks. She nods. "Yes. I saw how he grew. How you grew. I can't ignore it. Not anymore." The room is quiet except for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. Alistair leans forward, resting his hands on the desk. "Why now?" he asks. "After all these years?" She looks down at her hands. "Because I've followed him from a distance," she admits. "I've watched him grow, and I've watched you. I see the man you've become, the father you've become. And it's unbearable to stay silent, to pretend I have nothing to do with this." Alistair leans back, eyes narrowing slightly, heart tightening. "You mean?" "Yes," she interrupts gently. "I was the one who left him on your doorstep. I gave you Leo because I believed you could give him what I could not. I believed you could love him fully, more than I ever could. And I was right. You did." Her voice trembles. "I never told you because I thought it would make things worse. That I would ruin what you built. But I can't live with myself without saying it." Alistair sits in stunned silence, the weight of her words pressing into the room. His chest tightens, eyes darkening with emotion he had not expected to feel. You left him," he whispers. She nods, tears glistening in her eyes. "I left because I thought you couldn't. Because I thought you needed him more than I did. I thought I was unworthy." Alistair's hands clench on the desk. "Unworthy?" he echoes, voice low, trembling slightly. "I needed him," she continues, softly. "But I also knew you needed him, and I knew you could love him the way he deserved. I hoped you would see that and forgive me in time." Alistair stands, pacing slowly, feeling the old pain rise up, then fold into a new, deeper understanding. He stops in front of her, eyes searching hers. "You left me because you thought I was incapable." Ilara swallows hard. No, she says firmly. I left because I thought you had already walled yourself away from the world. I thought, maybe Leo could break those walls. And he did. He did, Alistair. He made your heart open when nothing else could. Silence stretches between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. Alistair looks toward the window, at the golden light spilling across the floor, at the scattered toys, at the evidence of a life fully lived. Then he turns back to her, voice soft but steady. You carried this secret for all these years, he says. And you came back because you couldn't bear it anymore. She nods, tears streaming freely now. I had to see him. I had to see what became of him, of us. Alistair exhales slowly, a mixture of relief, sorrow, and something he cannot name. You were right, he whispers. He is. Everything I could have wanted. And more. Alara looks at him, hope flickering in her eyes. Can you forgive me? She asks softly. Alistair pauses, studying her, seeing not only the guilt but the love she carried in silence for all these years. I don't know yet, he admits, voice low. But I can try. For him. For us. And in that lived-in study, sunlight dancing across warm walls and scattered memories, the two of them sit, letting the words linger, letting the truth settle, knowing that everything has changed, yet nothing feels impossible anymore. The study is quiet except for the soft ticking of the clock and the faint hum of city life outside the windows, but inside, the air is heavy with years of unspoken truth. Alara's hands tremble as she clasps them together on her lap, knuckles white. Her voice shakes, small and fragile at first, as she begins to speak. Alistair, there's something I need to tell you, she says, tears welling in her eyes. Alistair leans back in his chair, heart tightening, eyes searching hers for the words he already fears. I've carried this for so long. I can't do it anymore. She takes a deep breath, the sound catching in her throat, and continues. I'm not Leo's birth mother. The words hang in the air, heavy, impossible, and Alistair blinks, unsure if he heard her correctly. What do you mean? He asks, voice low, almost broken. She swallows, trembling, and finally looks directly at him, eyes glistening with tears. After I left you, after I walked out of your life, I fell into a deep depression. I thought I would never be enough, never be able to be the kind of person who could give love, who could hold a child without breaking. I lost myself. She pauses, shaking her head, and a sob escapes. Alistair remains silent, waiting, letting her words fill the space between them. Years later, she continues, I started volunteering at a shelter for young mothers, girls who had no one, no family, no guidance. I wanted to do something, anything that mattered. Her voice trembles, and she closes her eyes, reliving the memory. One day, I met Maya. She was so young, barely more than a child herself. A runaway. Sick, dying, exhausted. She had just given birth. A baby boy, so small, so perfect, and she had no one to care for him. Her hands reach up to cover her face, shaking. I held her hand as she passed. She looked at me, weak and fading, and she whispered her last wish, that her son go to someone good, someone who would understand the value of a child. And I thought of you, Alistair, the only truly good man I had ever known, even if wounded, even if lost in himself. You could love him, give him everything he needed. Alistair's chest tightens, his jaw clenches, and he leans forward slightly, voice catching. You left him on my doorstep. Alara nods, sobbing openly now, shoulders shaking. Yes. I left him there because I believed I was unworthy to raise him myself. But I knew in my heart that you could love him, that your capacity for love was not gone, merely buried beneath the walls you built around yourself. And I prayed, that he would find life, joy, and care with you. She leans forward, voice breaking. I never wanted to hurt you, Alistair. I never wanted to take him from you. I only wanted him to live, to be safe, to be loved the way he deserved. And I thought you were the man who could do that. The room is silent except for her soft, shuddering breaths. Alistair rises slowly, pacing a few steps, running a hand across his face, trying to process decades of loss, love, and now revelation. All these years, he murmurs, voice low. All this time, I thought. He stops, looking at her, eyes full of pain, confusion, and something softer, acceptance beginning to stir. You left him because you believed I could give him the love you could not. You trusted me with him, he whispers, almost to himself, then looks at her. You trusted me. Alara nods, tears flowing freely now. Yes, I trusted you. And I am so sorry for the pain, the silence, for keeping this from you. But I had to make sure he had a life before I interfered. I had to see that he would be loved. Alistair sits down slowly, staring at the floor, letting her words settle, letting the weight of her confession sink deep into his chest. The study is no longer cold. It is warm with truth, sorrow, and an undeniable relief. For the first time in years, Alistair breathes without pretense. He looks up at her, voice soft, broken but steady. You were right. He is everything I could have hoped for. And somehow, you made that possible. Alara reaches out tentatively, placing a trembling hand on his. I just needed you to know, she whispers. And in that sunlit, lived-in study, filled with scattered toys, books, and the quiet weight of decades, a secret finally spoken begins to lift, and the bond forged in love, loss, and hope starts to heal. Alistair sits heavily in his chair, the leather creaking under his weight, hands gripping the arms as if holding onto the room itself could steady the storm inside him. The words Alara has just spoken hang in the air, heavy, impossible, pressing against his chest, each one striking like a hammer against granite. His mind races memories flashing in jagged fragments. The years of silence, the lonely dinners, the empty bed, the empire he built around perfection and cold logic, thinking it was enough, thinking it would shield him from the ache of absence. And now he sees it all differently, sees her, sees Leo, sees the truth laid bare before him. Pain and understanding collide inside him, twisting and tearing, leaving him breathless. He closes his eyes, swallows hard, feeling the old sorrow of loss mixed with the new, piercing awareness of what has been, of what he never realized he needed until now. Alara. His voice is rough, hoarse, almost foreign in his own ears. He looks up at her, eyes searching, desperate. Why didn't you just come back to me? The question, simple yet monumental, carries a lifetime of longing, a lifetime of unanswered nights, and the emptiness of a heart that thought it could never be whole. Alara stands still, shoulders trembling, tears streaming freely down her face, wetting her cheeks and dripping onto the hem of her coat. She takes a step closer, voice shaking, fragile, yet steady with honesty. I thought, she begins, swallowing hard. I thought my leaving was because you couldn't give me a child. I believed that was the reason, that somehow you would never want me again, that I would never be enough. She pauses, the words catching in her throat, her hands twisting nervously in front of her. But I was wrong. Her eyes lift, meeting his with a clarity that cuts through decades of doubt. I left because you had already walled yourself away from the world, Alistair. I saw it in you, in the way you moved through life like a fortress, perfect, untouchable, invulnerable. And I thought, Leo, he could break those walls. I thought he could make you live again, make you feel again. And he did. Alistair leans back slightly, shaking, a tremor running through his shoulders, through his hands. The words crash into him like waves, relentless, unstoppable, each one pulling at memories he tried to forget, at fears he buried deep. He did, he whispers, barely audible. The sound is almost a surrender, almost a confession, almost a recognition of everything he has gained and lost. He looks at Leo, playing quietly in the other room, laughter echoing softly, oblivious to the magnitude of the revelation, and his chest swells with a mix of pride, grief, and overwhelming love. All this time. He says, voice cracking, all these years. I thought I understood everything. I thought I knew what I was missing. But I never understood until now. Alara steps closer, reaching for his hand tentatively. You do now, she says softly, tears catching the sunlight as it streams through the study windows, painting the room in gold and shadow. And I could never undo the past, Alistair, but I could help him live, and I knew you could love him as he deserves. Alistair closes his eyes, letting her words sink, letting the flood of old pain and new understanding wash over him. His heart beats hard, painfully, yet with a strange warmth, a strange hope. And for the first time in decades, the walls he built feel fragile, human, breakable, and he does not recoil. He opens his eyes slowly, meeting hers again. You were right, he says, voice low, steadying. He did break the walls. And somehow, you helped him do it. The study is quiet but alive, every corner glowing with sunlight, dust, and memories, the weight of years lifting slowly. They stand there, two people shaped by loss, regret, and love, facing each other in truth at last, the past unmasked, the present heavy with realization, and the future suddenly, impossibly, wide open. Alistair sits in the warm, lived-in study, the sunlight spilling across the worn Persian rug, toys scattered in quiet evidence of Leo's presence, and he watches her carefully, Alara standing a few feet away, hands folded, eyes hesitant, uncertain, carrying years of guilt and hope in equal measure. He does not smile. He does not speak immediately. His mind races, weighing every word he might say, every gesture he might make, the weight of the past heavy on his shoulders, the careful control he always maintained now softening but not gone. Finally, he clears his throat, voice low but steady, measured. "Leo," he calls. The boy, now 8, scrambles out from behind the couch, cheeks still flushed from play, hair tousled, eyes bright and curious. "Yes, Daddy," he asks, looking up at him. Alistair stands, gesturing toward Alara with a hand that is both cautious and deliberate. "This is an old friend," he says slowly. "She knew your mother." Leo tilts his head, studying her, the words not fully understood, yet curiosity sparking in his gaze. "Hi," Leo says softly. "I'm Leo." Alara kneels slightly to meet his eyes, a gentle smile breaking through her worry. "Hello, Leo," she says softly, voice warm, steady. "It's nice to meet you." There is a pause, small and quiet, as Leo studies her face, the eyes gentle, the presence calm. You paint?" he asks suddenly, pointing toward a small sketchbook she carries, tucked carefully under her arm. Alara nods, lifting the sketchbook slightly. "Yes," she says. "I like to paint what I feel. Sometimes what I see, sometimes what I imagine." Leo's eyes light up, curiosity growing. "Can you show me?" Her hand opens, and she sets the sketchbook gently on the floor, flipping it to a page filled with vibrant colors, swirling shapes, landscapes that seem alive. "Wow," Leo whispers. He leans closer, small fingers brushing the edge of the paper. "I want to try. Can you teach me?" Alara's eyes soften, and she smiles tentatively. "Of course," she says. "We can start with simple shapes. Circles, lines, whatever you like." Alistair watches silently from his chair, arms crossed loosely, heart tightening and loosening all at once. He does not interrupt, does not guide, merely observes the exchange, seeing the tentative connection form, the curiosity, the trust slowly building. Leo picks up a pencil from the desk, and she guides his hand lightly at first, showing how to hold it, how to move it across the paper. He laughs when the pencil slips. "It's okay," she says, gently, patience in every word. "We can try again." Over the next hour, they sit on the rug, knees bent, sketchbook between them. Leo's small hands smear colors accidentally, and Alara chuckles softly, cleaning up smudges, showing him how mistakes can be part of the art. "See," she says. "Sometimes the best parts come from mistakes." Leo laughs, bright and free, the sound softening the room even more. Alistair notices, and something inside him shifts. He stands slowly, stretching, and for a moment he sees not a child being taught, but a bridge being built, a wall slowly dissolving, a heart opening that had been closed for far too long. "You'll have to show me too someday," Leo says, looking up at Alistair with sparkling eyes. Alistair smiles faintly, nodding, and Leo beams. Day by day, the visits continue. Alara brings paints, pencils, and sometimes small canvases, and Leo eagerly absorbs everything she shares. They explore color, shapes, textures, ideas, stories, and even silence. There is laughter, occasional frustration, questions that stump her, questions that stump him, and moments of quiet reflection where they just watch the sunlight move across the room, toys and sketches scattered, a life fully alive between them. She shares stories of her travels, of art, of people she has met, and Leo listens, asks questions, shares his own thoughts, tentative and bold at once. Alistair observes quietly, giving them space, allowing a gentle, tentative bond to grow, never pushing, never interfering, simply watching as the connection strengthens. Slowly, Alara becomes a beloved mentor, guiding him not only in art but in imagination, empathy, and curiosity. She brings sketches to show him the world beyond the penthouse walls. And he teaches her patience in new ways, laughter in tiny doses, the joy of a child discovering himself. Their relationship forms like gentle layers of paint on canvas, careful strokes building something beautiful, deep, lasting. Alistair does not yet forgive her fully for the past, not yet, but he understands, watches the bond flourish, and feels a quiet gratitude. For Leo, Alara is warmth, guidance, and inspiration. For Alistair, she is proof that the world outside walls can be gentle, tender, and loving, and he allows himself finally to let her presence in. Not as replacement, not as undoing, but as part of the life they now share slowly, carefully, and with hope. The boardroom is cold, austere, and gleaming, every surface polished to perfection, every chair aligned with military precision, yet the air is thick with anticipation, whispers barely contained, the scent of leather and expensive cologne mixing with faint traces of coffee. Alistair, now in his 70s, hair silvered at the temple's posture, still commanding, stands at the head of the long mahogany table, the weight of decades pressing lightly on his shoulders, but his presence undiminished, eyes steady, voice calm, but carrying the power of experience. Beside him stands Leo, 25 now, tall, confident, but with a warmth in his gaze that mirrors the man who raised him, a quiet strength that fills the room with a subtle but undeniable authority. Alistair surveys the board members, all impeccably dressed, expressions ranging from curiosity to mild skepticism, a few eyes narrowing, trying to predict his intentions. He clears his throat, the sound echoing slightly, and the room falls silent. Gentlemen, ladies, he begins, voice even, deliberate. Today marks a new chapter. After decades at the helm of Ethelgard Industries, I am announcing my retirement. A murmur ripples through the room. Leo shifts slightly, standing taller, expression calm, ready but not imposing, waiting for what comes next. Furthermore, Alistair continues, gesturing toward his son, I am appointing Leo Thorne as the new chief executive officer of this company. A sharp cough interrupts him, and one of the older, stuffy board members rises, adjusting his tie, looking incredulous. Alistair, with all due respect, he says, voice tight with traditional authority, succession protocols exist for a reason. This decision, appointing someone outside the immediate bloodline, outside established procedure, is unprecedented. Are you certain this is wise? The room shifts uncomfortably, the question hanging heavy in the air. Alistair turns slowly toward the man, gaze unwavering, calm, commanding, yet softened by years of reflection and understanding. He does not respond immediately. He lets the silence stretch, letting it settle like dust, before speaking, each word measured, deliberate, carrying weight far greater than corporate procedure. For years, he begins, voice deepening slightly, filling the room with an unusual gravity. I built this company thinking legacy was a name on a building, digits in an account, trophies in a display case. I believed that strength was measured in wealth, influence, contracts signed, and market shares acquired. I believed legacy was tangible, calculable, secure. I was wrong. Eyes around the room widen, board members leaning forward, sensing that something profound is about to unfold. Alistair pauses, letting the words sink in, letting the truth settle into the polished, sterile air. Legacy, he continues, voice rising gently but firmly, is the man you raise. It is the compassion he shows because you showed him compassion. It is the courage he wields to protect others because you taught him what it means to feel safe. It is the wisdom he carries, the integrity he demonstrates, and the love he gives because he was loved first. He glances at Leo, standing still, calm, poised, eyes meeting his father's for a long, silent beat, a mutual understanding passing between them, the weight of the years, the trials, the laughter, the tears, all distilled into that single moment. Leo's first boardroom was my arms, Alistair says, voice softening, a faint, proud smile tugging at his lips. His first takeover was of my heart. He is my son in every way that has ever mattered. He is my heir. A silence descends, thick and powerful, heavier than any corporate objection, more compelling than any financial argument. The boardroom seems to shrink around them, focus narrowing to the man and the son, the legacy redefined, the truth undeniable. A few board members shift in their seats, whispering to one another, caught between tradition and the undeniable power of Alistair's declaration, while Leo remains composed, shoulders back, eyes steady, absorbing the weight of responsibility and the gift of trust his father has placed in him. The stuffy board member who had objected first now swallows, face tight, unsure, caught in the undeniable moral gravity of what has just been declared. Alistair continues, voice strong, steady, warm, yet unyielding. All else fades. Buildings crumble. Money loses meaning. Shares fluctuate. But the man you raise, the life you nurture, the love you give, this endures. Leo embodies everything I value most, everything I have learned about love, trust, and legacy. He is ready. He is deserving. And he is my choice. He steps back slightly, giving Leo space, letting the young man's presence speak for itself. Leo nods subtly, a small, confident gesture, and the boardroom begins to stir, slowly, grudgingly, with recognition, with respect, with awe. Alistair sits briefly, letting the weight of the moment sink into the room, into the men and women who have spent decades focused on spreadsheets and strategy contracts and conquests, now confronted with a truth far more enduring. Legacy is not in numbers, nor in walls, nor in gold. It is in hearts and lives, in love given and returned. And in that room, filled with tension, tradition, and the quiet echo of what matters most, Alistair sees it all finally clear. He sees the life he has built beyond empire and wealth, the son he has raised into a man capable of greatness, not through inheritance but through love, and he knows finally that the world, the company, and the legacy are in the right hands. The sunlight spills generously across the garden, casting a warm glow over neatly trimmed hedges and the soft green of the lawn. Alistair sits in a wrought iron chair, leaning back slightly, shoulders relaxed for the first time in decades, hands resting lightly on his cane, eyes following Leo as he walks past. Crisp business suit perfectly fitted, phone in hand, moving with the ease of a man who has inherited not just a company, but a responsibility he fully understands. Leo is calm yet animated, giving instructions to his executive team in a tone that is firm but gentle, every word measured. Every decision considered, the embodiment of the lessons Alistair poured into him over years. Lessons not in power but in integrity, kindness, and respect. He laughs occasionally, the sound easy, unforced, and Alistair watches, chest swelling with quiet pride, remembering the boy who once slept in a wicker basket, the infant who had no name, and marveling at the man he has become. Beside him, Alara sits, sketchbook balanced on her lap, a pencil tapping softly against the page as she captures the scene before her. Not just the company, not just the business-like movements of a successful CEO, but the subtle glances, the gentle smiles, the unspoken love and understanding between father and son. Her eyes catch Alistair's, and they exchange a small smile, not romantic, not forced, but deep and knowing, born from years of shared history, regrets acknowledged, forgiveness tentative yet real, and mutual devotion to Leo's happiness. The garden seems alive with laughter as Leo returns to them, a mischievous grin on his face. "You two are plotting something, I can tell," he says, voice teasing. Alistair chuckles, a rare, rich sound, shaking his head. "We are just enjoying the sun," he says. Alara laughs softly, glancing down at her sketch, then looking up again. "And maybe planning which flowers you should plant next," she adds, and Leo feigns outrage, slapping his hand on his chest. "You're conspiring against me, aren't you?" he jokes. The laughter drifts over the garden, soft and carefree. Evenings are spent differently now. Family dinners have become sacred rituals. They sit at a long, wooden table, imperfectly set, plates mismatched, wine glasses clinking occasionally. Leo tells stories of boardroom victories, lessons learned, funny mistakes, or small moments of daily life, while Alistair listens, nodding, occasionally correcting a minor detail with gentle humor, Alara adding commentary from an artist's perspective, often drawing out laughter or thoughtful silence. Conversation flows easily, a river that once felt blocked, full of laughter, reflection, and quiet love. The three of them together are a chosen family, imperfect yet perfect in their own way. Alistair, once isolated in his fortress of wealth and routine, now leans back in his chair, watching Leo converse animatedly with Alara about a painting, noticing the way his son's eyes light up with genuine curiosity, noticing the way Alara's hands gesture as she explains a color choice, seeing the joy they share in these small, quiet moments. He feels a contentment that has nothing to do with money, power, or legacy on paper. It is deeper, fuller, anchored in love, trust, and connection. At the end of the evening, they gather on the veranda, the sky painted in soft pinks and oranges, stars beginning to peek through. Leo leans against the railing, Alistair sits in his favorite chair, and Alara places a sketchbook on the small side table. They talk quietly, sharing memories, hopes, and plans, the sounds of the city distant, irrelevant. The garden, the home, the laughter, it all forms a cocoon of life they have chosen to build together. Alistair closes his eyes briefly, inhaling the scent of the flowers, the faint aroma of cooking from earlier, the laughter lingering in the air. He thinks of the wicker basket, of the first night he held Leo, of every late night lesson, every scraped knee, every tear and laugh. And he knows, without a shadow of doubt, that this imperfect, chosen, perfect family, is everything he could have ever hoped for. In the quiet that follows, they sit together, a trio bound not by blood, but by love, devotion, and the shared understanding that family is not always given. It is made, nurtured, and cherished. And in that golden light of the setting sun, Alistair smiles, fully, unguarded, heart finally at peace. The fire crackles softly in the hearth, orange and gold flames flickering and casting a warm, gentle light across the room. The walls are lined with memories, framed sketches, photographs, small mementos of a life fully lived. In the center, in the worn leather chair that has been his favorite for decades, sits Alistair, older, now hair white, at the temple's shoulders slightly stooped. Hands resting on the arms of the chair, yet still holding the quiet authority of a man who has faced life's storms and survived. The rug underfoot is thick and soft, the scent of polished wood mingling with the faint aroma of the fire and the sweet hint of vanilla from a candle burning nearby. In a burst of small, joyful energy, Leo's young daughter, tiny, bright-eyed, with curls bouncing as she runs, climbs into his lap, gripping a storybook with both hands. "Grandpa!" she exclaims, her voice pure and excited. Alistair smiles, a slow, tender smile that creases his face in ways only time and love could create. "Hello, little one," he says softly, voice gentle, yet carrying a warmth that fills the room. She props the book open on his knees, pointing eagerly at a picture of a family. "That's you, Grandpa, and Daddy, and Grandma Alara," she says, voice full of certainty and innocence, the kind of truth only a child can speak. Alistair looks down at her, eyes misting slightly, throat tight with emotion. "Is that so?" he asks softly, tilting his head to study the page, tracing the illustrated figures with a finger. He glances around the room, taking it all in, the sight of Alara sitting cross-legged on the floor, sketching a scene from her imagination, a small smile on her face as she hums quietly. Leo, animated and warm, talking with his wife about a project, both of them laughing gently, the firelight dancing across the walls, flickering over the polished wood of the shelves and the books stacked in gentle disorder. And on the wall, framed proudly, hangs the yellow baby blanket, now more than just fabric, a symbol of beginnings, of love, of the miraculous path that led here. Alistair's hand reaches up to smooth his granddaughter's curls, his thumb brushing her cheek. "You know," he says softly, voice low, "she was right about something long ago." She looks up at him, wide-eyed, waiting, sensing that this is a story with weight. He inhales slowly, looking at the blanket again, at the family around him, at the warmth and life that now fills every corner. "The most precious things," he whispers, so softly that the flames seem to lean closer to hear, "don't come in vaults." He pauses, eyes misting, chest swelling with a lifetime of love and regret, joy and redemption. "They come in baskets." The words float gently in the air, heavy with memory, hope, and truth. The little girl giggles, leaning her head against his chest as he closes the book slowly, finger still tracing the page. "Baskets?" she asks, curiosity bright in her tone. "Yes," he replies, voice tender, almost a lullaby. "Because sometimes the most important gifts are the ones you never expect, the ones that arrive quietly, without warning, and change your life forever." The fire flickers, casting long shadows that dance over the faces of the family gathered nearby, all unaware of the exact magic happening in this simple, golden moment. Alistair rocks her gently in his lap, listening to her soft breathing, feeling the warmth of her small body, the lightness of her trust, the depth of the love that now binds 3 generations together. He lets his gaze linger on Leo, on Alara, on the life they have built together, and a soft, unguarded smile spreads across his face, a smile born of relief, gratitude, and profound understanding. The weight of years, of solitude, of mistakes, of love withheld and then found, lifts slightly, leaving only the quiet certainty that this imperfect, chosen, beautiful family, is everything he could have ever hoped for. The room is alive with warmth, laughter, and memory, the fire crackling, shadows dancing, and Alistair, finally, rests, heart full, eyes misted, lips moving in a whisper once more. They come in baskets. And for the first time, he knows that it is true, that love, legacy, and life's greatest treasures cannot be locked away. They must be held, nurtured, and shared.